So next, we'd like to welcome Blair Drummond, enabling product thinking for Terraform modules with OTL.
Perfect, I'm ready.
All right, take it away.
All right, thanks. So we're going to talk about enabling product thinking for Terraform modules with OpenTelemetry and OpenTofu. So this is going to call back to some stuff that Seth talked about earlier in the day with like marketplaces for things like VPC modules and CloudFormation. The same kind of thing exists for Terraform modules if you haven't used Terraform before. But basically, these are just wrappers around cloud primitives that you can deploy together, and you can provide simpler interfaces for developers to deploy things. And you can also bake in security guardrails into these modules. So this is a common sort of practice in a lot of larger organizations. The Canadian government has 101 free ones publicly on GitHub, which is pretty cool. So this is useful for developers, but what we're really going to talk about is how do we actually maintain these kind of marketplaces as a product. So if you have a collection of things like these, and if you're asked the question, which versions of your modules are being used, I'd be very interested to know if you have an answer. Because I find a lot of people don't really know. You create the marketplace, but then how do you actually maintain it over time? How do you know, how to prioritize improvements? And when users have errors, how do we actually get any visibility into that, right? Often I find that they were just dropping tickets, into some ticket engine. So these are common product problems that we've seen before, right? And we solved those problems using observability. So we said, how can we bring that to Terraform modules? So we took a look at tracing Terraform modules so that we could correlate errors in modules to the teams and the modules implicated. We got started with that by instrumenting OpenTofu. We actually had to go a little bit beyond that because Tofu init and Tofu apply have different information, and we needed to correlate both of them together. Tofu init just pulls the modules, so we needed that in order to understand the source. So we instrumented the Tofu controller as well, which is a Flux project. It's kind of cool. You should check it out. But a CI/CD pipeline would also work. We just wanted to use a tool that was kind of germane to Terraform specifically for this project. And so we did it. So this is a trace of OpenTofu controller spinning up like a runner, initializing a Terraform module, planning it, applying it, and we see really like a full end-to-end trace in like a centralized observability system. The details of the Tofu controller are not super important here. They have resources kind of like this where you know which team is trying to create this run, we know what the name of the run is, and we know which module it's trying to apply. So we saw a trace. We're going to go back to a little refresher on what a trace is. So I think of French fries as a delivery mechanism for gravy and cheese curds. A span is like a unit of time, and it has attributes, which are like metadata, and it has events, like the specific error that happened. And so when we take a look at what one of those traces looks like, one span here, which is like a collection inside of a trace, has all of these attributes that say which modules are in here, what versions of those modules, and down at the bottom we have the specific error that happened in a specific resource. And when we put all of that together, we can get this kind of global view of like which modules are being used, what their error rates are, which versions of those modules are being used, even how long those modules take to run, which we think is pretty cool. And this is all open source. You can check out this GitHub link. We have the instrumented OpenTofu, Tofu controller, that demo Grafana dashboard. You can kind of just spin it up and give it a try. There's no product here. This is just off-the-shelf stuff. But what we really want the food for thought to be, pun intended, is how can tracing improve your CI/CD, right? So this was an instance where we traced Tofu and Terraform in order to understand that, but we deploy a lot of stuff with CI/CD, and we should really be tracing more of it. And this was just an example to sort of say how that works. But this is really still a work in progress. So there's actually an active group in the OpenTelemetry community on OpenTelemetry for CI/CD. I'm proud to say that one of my colleagues, Adriel Perkins, helped with sort of like getting this group like kickstarted. But this is really active right now with representatives from like GitHub, GitLab, Tecton, Jenkins, the works. And really what we're seeing is like the possibility of a unified system for approaching like CI/CD tracing across platforms. I want to thank my collaborators on this project, Ryan Hooford and Alice Jones. Without them, there would not be code for this demo, which would have made it very boring. So a big thank you to them personally. And thanks for listening. You can hear just a little bit more of our rambling about why this stuff is important at that QR code. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Blair. Thank you. Wonderful. Thanks.